Right. So we started functions and all those things in JavaScript. So we are gradually getting into this JavaScript world. And we have seen that we have different types of functions and everything. So today what I'm doing, as I said, that I'll try to run few things in our REPL as well, the browser REPL. So if I go into my browser and I go into inspect, I hope you had a chance to look at this one. We have talked about that how to run your how to run file in that one. And here we have this console environment where I can always run my JavaScript code if I want, right? So today, alongside this document, sometimes I will be coming over here and I will be trying to run few things over here and just to show you. And our discussion is still on functions because functions is a very, very important topic of JavaScript. And I would like today we would like to have certain types of functions, certain things that you are not familiar with while studying C language. We don't usually see function behavior as we see in JavaScript. JavaScript has all very different behavior when it comes to the function. So we said that there is a type of function which we say that, for example, we say that there are three types of functions. If you see, three categories of functions that we can create. So we have, first of all, called function declarations, the most basic form of the functions that we talk about. When there is a function keyword, then the function name, and then the body of the function. And then we said that there is another type, this is function expression. So today I would like to talk about some function expression and then function arrow function as well, and then we'll see. So function expressions are very interesting. If I come over here and if I say, for example, if I say my addition, I want to create a function and I say, for example, I say function, right? And I pass up, for example, a parameter, something like that as well. And I give a return statement over here. So return, and for example, I can say hello, and plus I can just see name, right? Curly braces and terminator. Now, one thing to remember, and I hope everyone will remember that when we are using this function expressions, we are writing a function as an expression. And if you have looked at the first lecture, I have discussed in detail that the function expression, whenever you are writing functions and expression, this should always end with a semicolon because this would be behaving as a statement. So it's basically like a statement. So I have defined a function with the name of my addition, or I can call it anything. So I have a function which has been stored into like this function has been stored into a variable. So if I hit enter, you see that my addition has become a function where I can call this function like this. So if I want to call this function, for example, before calling even, if I just write down my addition and press hit enter, does everyone see that what it becomes? It is showing that my addition is typically a function because I have stored this expression in this function. So it says that it is over there. Now, if I want to call this function, my addition, I'll have to use what? Inverted commas, and I can give any name or anything that I want. And if I just do that, you see that now it is showing me, returning me this hello Ellen, because this function is doing nothing, but it just takes out the takes the argument, and after taking this argument, it just returns with the hello, this returns a string. Is that making sense to everyone? So this is one interesting way. Now, the thing that I want to tell you here is that in JavaScript, as I told you in the beginning, that JavaScript has this weird behaviors with when you talk about functions. I can even do something like this. If this is, this would come as a surprise for most of you, but I can say var, for example, my addition to equal to my addition. I can even use this statement. Now, what I've done, I have defined a variable again, and I've called this my addition to, and I am storing my addition into it. And you have just seen what is inside this my addition. Well, my addition consists of a complete function. So now, if I do something like this, very interestingly, JavaScript not only allows this to us. If I just hit enter, so you see we look at the same function that was inside that my addition, right? So it has that same function that had my addition, and interestingly, I can call this function also in the same way as I was calling. So it was my addition to, and I can call this Smith, for example, and I can call it the same way as I was calling. So this is another weird behavior that even JavaScript allows you to define another variable and store the same function into another variable. Makes sense to everyone? So this is another behavior of JavaScript that is, of course, that is typically different from our C language knowledge, because we are familiar with C language knowledge, and there we never did like this. Even we never did something like that, which was basically, you know, that it was like I could never store a function into a variable in C language. Here, not only I can store a function into a variable, rather I can even define another variable and I can store that variable's value into this one. Right. So this is one of the behavior, and as I said, we can pass this function to the other functions, and we can do lots of wonderful things. Now we'll talk about something related to the return from the function, that how function returns something. So for example, if I come over here, like for example, I'm writing a function over here. I write a function. I can call it anything. Let's call it do something. Right, I'm just calling a function do something which is accepting 2 parameters, right? And I don't do anything. I'm just not returning anything. And I'm writing right now. If you see that this one is the function declaration. So I would be switching between sometimes function declarations, sometimes we'll be writing that function expressions. But let's talk about, here we are talking about the return from the function. You will enjoy that. Return from the function. Now, something to remember. Every function in JavaScript always returns something. This was not the case again with the C language functions. But in JavaScript, every function always returns something. Now, you might be surprised. Like this function is right now, I'm not using any return statement, but even this function also returns something, and that's a very interesting fact. What does that mean? Let me show you. So, for example, if I say console.log and I say do something, and I'm passing a value 1, 2, like that. Now, if I run this function, can anyone tell me what will be the output? Those who know, what should be the output over here when I just run this program? If I run this program node script.js, I'm just running this program over here. What will be the output? Anyone? Any wild guesses? Because I am calling the function inside this console.log, and this console.log will be expecting a value returned out of this do something function, but that function is not returning anything. So any idea what should be there? Mini says no idea. No problem. That's undefined. Claire, that's wonderful. It should be undefined, and that's a wonderful thing. So just remember that statement that I've given to you. Every function in JavaScript always returns something. If it is not an explicit return, it implicitly returns something. So it is implicit. Yeah, implicit return is always undefined, right? So undefined will be a return from this this function. Why? Because I am not returning anything explicit. Is that clear to everyone? So implicitly it always it always returns, and it always returns an undefined. So again, if I am calling a function where it is expecting a value and I am not given anything, it will implicitly define. Now, if I want to explicitly return anything, so if ever you have to return anything explicitly, you can always. Now let's see what happens if I do something like this. Now, what will be the output now? Can anyone let me know? Just a wild guess, or if someone knows. Correct? What will be the output now? I am explicitly returning something, but I am explicitly returning an undefined. Of course, right? You are right. So it would be undefined. Why? Because still I am returning. Explicitly I'm returning, but I'm still returning what? The undefined. So that's a wonderful thing. And we can just check that whatever it is just returning, this all is basically undefined. And I can, so it's whether it is implicit and return or whether it is explicit return, it will always return something. So if you do not return anything, of course, it will do what? It will, from its own side, it will just return implicit undefined. So remember, every function returns at least a value, and that value, if there is no value, it will return implicitly and undefined. Now, how about this one? Of course, now this function has become a very operational and very interesting function, or the addition function. And of course, now it will return a 3 to us. Why? Because now I am getting a proper return from that. And I'm just adding those two numbers together, and then I'm getting those as the return from them. Is that clear to everyone? Right. So now this is basically what? That's, as I said, that it is basically a return. So always a function will return. If you are not using a return statement, implicit return will be always an undefined. So you have to just keep that in mind, that if you are not returning anything, of course that will be returning. Okay. Now this was related to return. Now what about? Let's talk about something else. Parameters. About parameters. Let's talk about parameters also, because JavaScript functions have another very weird behavior. Now we are familiar with C language functions, as I said, and C language functions are very, very different. And now we'll see that what this function will do. So for example, if I have function, again, do something that we talked about before as well. It is accepting two parameters, and it is returning a plus b. Right? So the same thing that I was doing over there. But now, when I was calling this function, see here what happens. Console.log, and I call this do something, and I do not pass anything. Now it's a reverse problem. Firstly, there was a problem that I was passing something, but it was not returning anything. Here I am, like, the function is expecting two values, and I am not passing any values. Clef, are you making sense of it? I just returned the problem. I just reciprocated the problem. So now let's see what happens when I run my program. So it says NaN. Now this NaN is basically not a number. It's a special, it's a sort of an error type that shows that I have not passed anything at all, and it is trying to return something. Of course, it is trying to return a plus b, but a and b both have not been defined. And if there are two undefined or one undefined thing over there, it will always return an NaN. Are you getting that? Now, how about this one? If I pass a one value, okay, just one value. Any idea what should happen over? Like any wild idea, what should be there? So I'm passing one value over there. So it means exactly, Cleb, you are right. Still, it will be NaN. And why it will be NaN again? Because one of the value is legitimate value. The A is receiving one over there. But when A is combined with an undefined value, or undefined values, it really produces this NaN again. So this will be still NaN. Is that right? Now, how about this one? If I pass 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Now what will happen? Other than Cliff, anyone would like to just try it out? What will happen now? The function is looking for two parameters, and I have passed 4 parameters. What will happen? What it will return? Anyone? Now let's run that one. You see it is returning 3. Yes, Pavneet, you're right, 3. And why 3? So JavaScript is so user-friendly. In C language, if you used to define a function with 2 arguments, 2 parameters, you were never able to call that function with more than 2 arguments, or maybe less than 2 arguments. You remember everyone C language? In C, C++, you are always bound to have a function, and the number of parameters that you have defined, you have to exactly pass the same number of parameters. Otherwise, that function would not be passed, would not be called. But in JavaScript, you can call a function by providing more arguments or by providing less arguments. Now, what JavaScript does is that JavaScript just, for example, if you are providing more, so what it has done, it has just put A as 1, taken A as 1, B as 2, and just it has ignored rest everything, and it says that I don't know what else is coming, but I know about this one, that these two values are coming. Vinny, for the time being, you see that they are just discarded one way or other. They are not going into buffer or something like it, because there is no catching of it. We are not taking any into consideration that where we have to just take that one. But if you see that, of course, these are just simply discarded, and they just never come back. Right. So that's one very important thing, that the arguments, related to arguments, if you are providing more arguments, if you are providing less arguments, then it can just Now let's take one another example. That's a very interesting example, and that example is, for example, there is a function mylog which is taking one value x, right? So, and it is doing what? Just logging that value. Right. So how many ways I can call this function, and we'll see that what it will be just what it will be just showing. So for example, I can call this function mylog, and I can say, for example, correct. Right. So I have passed one value. That value will go over here, and that value will be printed out. Right. So let's talk about some more outputs. So if I call this function mylog, and I say, for example, also correct. Inverted commas, and this one. So this one is also correct for that one. But what will be the output also? We'll talk about that. We'll just see that. And I can call this function even like this. Now, yes, let's try to guess what will be the outputs of these three these three calling functions. Now come here. What will be the output of this statement? Because I am passing one parameter and it is accepting one parameter. So this correct will be output in our result. We'll see the result shortly. And how about this one? Also correct. What will be the output, Vinny? What will be the output over here? Also. So it will just generate also, and it will give just also as the output. And what will be the output over here? We have talked about that one. Constantine, what will be the output here? Line number 172 of mine. It will be undefined. Yes. It will be undefined. Why? Because it's not accepting any parameters. We are not passing any parameters over there, so it will be accepting parameters. Now there is a very interesting object, built-in objects in JavaScript, that can be used to handle this current situation. By handle current situation means we never know that how many arguments user is passing. So whatever number of arguments user is passing, if I want to just take a track of it, that how many have been passed, we can do this by using an object, and that object is called, it's a built-in object, and that object is called arguments. Arguments is a very nice object. Now let's change this program a bit, and we'll see that what do we mean. So there is a built-in object that is never defined, but that we do not define it. It's again an invisible object that resides always there. So if I say arguments, you see that it's available over there, right? So arguments, and we can even calculate the length of the argument, how many arguments user have passed. So I can, first of all, I can just print how many arguments user has passed, arguments.length, right? So again, we are looking at what? I don't know how many arguments or how many values have been passed. And then I will look at the value. What value has been passed? So that is x, which is passed over there, right? And then if I write arguments, so argument is created as an array. I hope you are familiar with the array. So if there are multiple arguments, this argument of 0 will represent the first argument of the first value out of the function. Make sense to everyone? Okay, now let's see. I will try to run this one. For that, I mean, I'll just make it open. So now let's run that, and let's see what will be the output. I'll just remove the previous output. I see here. First of all, it says arguments.length. So in the first call, I have just passed one argument. So it says argument.length is equal to 1. You see 1. And then it x. What is the x? By the argument itself. So it says this is correct. So basically it just prints out that correct. And then I have set arguments of 0. So this creates an array of the arguments, and if there is an array of the arguments, always the first argument will be at argument of 0 location. So what is at the argument of 0 location? Are you understanding? That is correct, because there is only one word. So that one word is the first word in the array. Pavneet, are you getting that? So this is argument of 0. This is first argument that has been printed. Now what about this one? This second situation. In second situation, we are passing 2 arguments, even though it was looking for 1 argument, but I have passed 2 of them. So you see, first of all, it is showing this 2, and then it is showing this also, because also is the x. X means the first argument. Whatever has been received over there, that would be stored in x, right? And the rest will be stored in the consecutive location. But if you see, argument of 0 is coming also as also. So if I want to print here correct, what should I do? Anyone, what should I do to print correct over here in the second call, 173, line number 173? If I want to have this excellent arguments of 1, of course, if I do that, if I do that arguments of 1, now my first output will become will become abnormal a bit. But let's see. So you see, first one says undefined because there is no argument 1 for the first one, right? But for the second one, of course, you see that also is coming, because this is x, this becomes x, and this correct is coming from the array, arguments of 1. Right? And if you talk about this last output, there is no argument, so it says 0 arguments. And not only that, it says undefined because there is no x, so undefined is x. And then what is the arguments of 1? Of course, that is also undefined. Let's keep it to 0, for example, or you can just do whatever. So you see that what is going on, that now we can, by using this arguments, a seamless object in JavaScript, we can always take care of our past values that have been passed, the values that have been passed by our program that have been passed from some other location. We can just take care of that particular thing. Does that make sense to everyone? So it's basically the argument. So if you do not pass the arguments, that will be interesting, and you will just get that one. Right. So that is one way of doing that one. And let's talk about if there is some like missing arguments, how we can just handle about that missing arguments. Let's talk about that one. So if there is an argument which is missing, how can I handle that situation? So we have a nice example in your notes. I'll just take that one. Update score. It says current score. Always look at that. We are giving values in like the variable names always are coming in what? In our the camel casing, right? Remember that camel casing over there. So return bonus question mark. Now here some previous knowledge will be tested as well, or refreshed as well. Current score plus value into bonus. Current score plus value. Now see here. Now this is a ternary operator. You remember ternary operator? Now this bonus is the third argument, and we are handling here that if user has given this bonus. So if bonus is there, it means that you have received this value, and if it is there, the return value will be current score plus value into bonus. So whatever is the current score, add value to that and multiply with bonus and then return that value. Now, if that condition is not true, like again, bonus has not been provided, you only provide current score plus value. Why? Because we know that now we have bonus is not there. So bonus is false. Right? So it's basically what? It's just checking for that bonus. If bonus is come, so let me tell you a very interesting fact over here that we have not discussed, that you might be thinking that what is this conditioning? Because here always condition comes. Remember, this ternary operator has a condition over here always. Now we are seeing that there is no condition over here which generates a true or a false. So whenever there is a string, this type of values are not called true or false. Rather, they are called something called truthy and falsy values. Truthy and falsy values. And there's a long discussion on that. But anyhow, so if the value is given, we'll say that it's a truthy value. near to true. So it's basically a true value, and if there is a value given, it means that condition is true. If it is true, then this line will execute, and if it is false, then this line will execute. Definitely. Are you getting that? So this is one way of handling missing arguments. So this argument can be missed over here, and we can just call that one. So for example, if I call this one update score, and I just provide correct score, for example 100, and I say the value is 20. I just call this function like this. So what will be the output over here, of course? So okay, so I'm not printing that output because that is only returning, right? Console.log. Now, what will be the output here? It will be 120. My voice is not clear and is same. Is that same with others as well? As Anne is saying that my voice is not clear. Oh, please. Are you also facing the problem with my voice? Oh, it's muffled. It's a bit muffled. Okay. Let's see if now. Okay, right. It's breaking up sometimes left sides, and you say it's muffled. And is it any better right now? Because I don't know what's going on with my. Maybe it's internet or something which is just creating this problem. Is it any better now? Okay, Vinny, you say yes. Okay, Subin, you say that yes. Right on. So I'm expecting that now it's a bit better. Yeah, transcript will help. And now I have turned on the transcript. Do you see the transcript now? Just hold on a minute. Enable auto transcription. Okay. Now I have just enabled the transcription. Can you see that transcription? Gautam? Yeah, okay. That's wonderful. Right. So as I said that if I just do not provide this third argument, of course, we are checking that if there is some argument which is missing, what will happen? So if third argument is not being provided, so we say that it would be falsy, like there is no argument value being provided over here. If it is there, this will be the current score or the value returned by the update score. And if it is not there, right, we will have only this one return. So it will just return 120. Why? Because I have not provided the bonus over here. And now how about this one? If I call this same line with one more value, if I pass it 3 as well, now what will be the output? Of course, if you can do mathematical calculations, it should be 160. But for the first line, it is 120. And for the second line, it is basically 160. Why? Because it shows that now this has been multiplied with the bonus. Yeah, So why it is multiplied first? Because now bonus is there. Now I have given this third value. So it's true here, like true here. If it is true here, it means that this statement will execute now. Vinny, you got that? Current score plus value multiplied by bonus. So it will be 1. So you have so it's so it's basically doing what? Right now, maybe mathematically it is not doing the right thing, because it's just first of all multiplying that and then adding that one, because we know that mathematically that multiplication operation is always done first. But anyhow, the right thing, of course, it is just multiplying that value with the bonus, and then it is just adding to the current score. So what value is basically multiplied. If you want to do that, you will have to just make other brackets over here. When you know what I mean. If you have to just do it the other way, you need to just put that in the brackets. Okay. So anyhow, so this is how one of the way of handling that one. Right. Then there are some other ways as well being given. You can just always check in your in your notes, because this is something that I have taken from your notes. And that same goes with your yours, as I said, that same goes with our, like, the return type. That return type is also basically the same that you need to work on. So if you wanted to sum score and value before multiplying by bonus. So again, either way, yeah. So you'll be using these like parenthesis type, right? If I understand correctly what you are saying, something like this, So parenthesis will do it for us. So now if I check the result, so you see 360. So now it's adding the current score and then then multiplying by 3. Okay, no problem. Right. So this is related to when the statement is missing something. We can always just talk about that one. So as I said, that there are a few things given in the notes, and I would like you to just go over there and try to look at those codes, because we have discussed most of the things over here. But now, if you value bonus, then first the statement will work. Okay, Gautam. For that, Gautam, I'll ask you a question. Do you know what is ternary operator? This question mark and colon, Gautam. It's a question from you. Question mark and terminator. Do you know about this ternary operator? Yeah, it is if else. So you see, Gautam, you see, if I call this like this, I am not providing the third parameter, which was bonus. So it will check over here that whether bonus has been received or not, because it knows that if two values have come, it will say, okay, this one and this one, two values. First value goes in the current score, second value goes in the value, third value goes in the bonus. So if user has not provided the third value, you check if user has provided the third value. If user has provided the third value, it will do what? It will first execute, like it will execute only this part of it. Same if else that you are talking about. It will basically do what? Calculation. Now, if user has not provided the bonus, as in this situation, if you see, in this situation, I've not provided the third value. So if there is no third value, it means you just go and do this step. Current score plus value. Gautam, you got the point? Yeah, that's fine. That's wonderful. Now you got the point. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other functions that we have in JavaScript. So there are some interesting functions that we can just use. I'll just discuss about them over here. So you see that there are some built-in global functions that we have in JavaScript. So there is a parseInt if you want to convert something into integer. For example, you see, I'll show you the examples, and you can always have a look at that one. And we'll be using, and by the way, these all will be used in some of the practice questions that will be followed today. So parseInt, the parseInt function parses a string argument and returns an integer of the specified radix. So there is a radix that is given over there, the base in mathematical numeral system. So whatever base system you want to convert it to. So for example, you have this one x and base, and we can just pass any values, and we will be just checking, and that will return the integer value of that particular that whatever system you have given. So if for example it says that parse is equal to parseInt, so integer, you are converting integer, converting into integer will be parseInt. And if you want to convert into float, like it will be saying that you convert into parse float. So if NaN, and again you see that is not a number. We have talked about this not a number, which is sort of considered as an error. So the is NaN function determines whether a value is NaN or not. Right, so we try to avoid this NaN, because this NaN, as I said, it's a problem. If an undefined value is added to undefined, or undefined value is added to a normal value or a routine value, this generates an NaN. So this NaN will check that whether it's a number or not, and if it is a number, it will just give that. If it is not a number, it will say that it is not a number. So it will generate a true or the false. If you see here, it's here that it is just that we have function millisecond x, if say okay, return not a number, and if it is not a number, return x into 1000. So whatever is has come, we can just return that. Right. I hope I am audible still, because my internet was giving me a message of that there is something wrong with internet. Anyhow. Okay, then we have decode URI and decode URI component, encode URI. I'll first talk about encode URI. This is very interesting, and we'll see that what it does. So URI typically we represent, URL or your uniform resource. We have one of them is locator and uniform resource identifier. It is that. So if you see that, what happens is that whenever there is a URI or URL, whatever, so what we do that we convert encode URI into a form. And why do we do that? Because what it does is that basically it converts that if there is a space, if there is some special character, it will be encoded into that one. And that's a very interesting fact. Let me just show you something. Or let's take, okay, I'll have taken this one. So this is a function that we are talking about, encode URI, right? So let's use this function. So you'll see that you'll realize that what it does. So for example, if I use encode URI and it has come twice. And what I do is that inverted commas, and I say, for example, I have a URI or something like that. I say hello, I'm giving spaces, right? Or I'm giving any special characters. So this encoding will do what? You see here, whenever space comes, you remember someone was saying that Google was giving so many big, the query or something like that. So hello %20, hello %20, hello %20, and there is something called ampersand over there. So now what it is doing, encode URI will convert our given string, our given uniform resource identifier, anything that you have passed to it, it will convert or encode that into the required form. You will see that your web browser always does that. And if you do not remember, I'll show you something interesting. If I do over here, I want to find again cat. If I want to search cat, so see my URL. You will observe that in URL you will find some interesting thing. Let me show you some interesting thing. So where is that? Okay, it's not showing any space right now, but you will see that whenever there is a space or something, it will just convert that into this %20 or something like that, right? What we have just seen. So encode URI or decode URI is just the opposite of that one. So decode URI is just the opposite of that one. So it will convert the given this URI, and it will decode that into the understandable form of that one. So whatever was there, like it had converted into the special characters, those special characters will be back to whatever over was there. So decode is just the opposite of that. So these are the few functions that you can just always look at that one. These are built-in global functions, and they are so you see that what they are saying. They are global functions that exist for historical reasons. You should be avoided for performance and security reasons. Eval and prompt and alert, these are generally not recommended. And why they are not recommended, I'll show you. There is one function with called alert, and this is very interesting. And what it does is why we are avoiding that one. I'll show you. Alert is a function that something like this. Hello, whatever that, right? So if I do that, if I hit enter, you see this alert produces a pop-up over there. Now, what is dangerous about that one? Dangerous is that now my web page will stop acting unless I press OK to that one. Make sense to everyone? So they say that there are certain functions that you should not be using so much. So alert is one of them, because as you see, that alert always stop your UI. You cannot do anything else unless you go and hit this OK. So what we say is that it has, frozen our main window, and we cannot do anything on our main window. Why? Because it is just, hindering it is not allowing us to do those kind of things. Right? Got everyone? So these are the functions that usually they are not recommended. Prompt alert, So they block the UI thread. This is called blocking the UI thread. So they will just block the UI thread, and unless you press on them, they will never allow you to execute anything else. Okay, then we have some of the functions that are standard, like most of the JavaScript standard library comes in form of methods. So these are called methods or the functions that we will be using in our program. So you see that console.log, console.what. This is interesting, and I'll show you something like that. So console is one of the objects that JavaScript provides us, and we have worked on that, and we have worked on one of them. So we say console.log. If I want to log anything, if I want to print anything, we see that I can just log that one, and it can be out of. Now there is some very interesting fact. If I just hit enter, write console and hit enter, and this is one of the ways that I'll tell you that we will be using lots of time. So we can see that this console has so many functions defined or methods defined inside that one. So you see that assert is there, clear is there, context count. So there are lots of functions that are over there, and they appear. So now we can use any one of them. So for example, if I say console.warn, warning. You see here, so warning is appearing like in a yellow color, and it's showing that this is a warning. In the same way, if I say console dot, so these are all the functions that are built in, the methods which are built in. Error. You see, it is showing that in red color. Is that neat? So console. So there are certain functions which reside inside some other objects. So one of them is console. It has count, it has assert, it has direct. We can count few things, something like that. Then we have math functions, math.abs, math max, math random. We'll be using them every now and then. This is very interesting date function. So let's talk about this date function. This date.now, and we'll be using this, as I said, we will be using some of the object a lot. So if I say date.now, and if I call that one, so in milliseconds, it's giving me right now what is the date, what is the time, and all those things. It is just returning me all those things from that one. So date is an object, and date object function we will be using a lot in our program. And then we'll just switch to JSON, we have JSON parser, speedify. It's a very interesting one, but I won't be discussing it right now. We'll talk about this one when we reach to that particular level. Now, there is another thing that need to be discussed before we start writing our own functions. We'll start writing functions. We'll start doing some practice on that one. But before that, I would like to say, I would like to tell all of you that in JavaScript, we have now 3 ways of defining variables. We have var to define variables, we have let to define a variable, and we have got const to define not a variable, to define a value, right? Because const is a constant value. Now, they have their own uses, they have their own purposes. We'll just talk about that. But anyhow, usually we use, like, you can use this var or you can use this let, and a time will come. So this let and const, both of these, so this one and this one, both of them have been provided by ES6. And you remember ES6? ECMAScript 6. So which is, as I said, if you remember, if you have seen the first lecture, that it is basically a standardization of JavaScript, and it gives us that standardization, and we have that one there. So variables scope, and if you talk about variables, how can we define variables? We can define variables by using var, we can define variables by using let, we can define variables by using const. And when we define something as a const, we cannot change that. We cannot, just change the value of that particular one. But if you say that we have got so the life of the variable, that really depends upon when we say. So, for example, if I just make this all comments. So let's make this all comments, and if you see that I have, for example, var x. Let's say x is equal to 10, right? So if I define this var x and there is nothing else, so I'm just writing a program, for example. This is just the beginning of the program. And if I write a function, my add, right, or whatever you can call it, and I'm just taking one variable into that one. And if I say var y equal to, right, so I say x plus a. return 1. Now you see here, we're talking about the scope of the variables. In C language, you are familiar that you talked about the scopes of the variables, and here also we have this the concept of scope. So when I have defined this variable outside of this one, this will be called as a global variable. Do you know the concept of global and local variables? Of course, and it is accessible everywhere, right? So if it is defined as a global variable, it can be accessed anywhere, and it can be it has its own scope. But when I've defined a variable inside this one, you see, I have defined a variable inside this one. Now this y has a local scope, or it will be called as local variable. Are you people familiar with local and global variables? Accessible only within my add function, right? So you will are familiar with that one. That's what. Right. So now if I call this function, like this, console.log, the total is, and I say total, not, or the value is whatever. The value is X, for example, right? And if I call that again, and I say Y value is, and if I want to ask this Y, right, and then if I say console.log, the combined value is, and here I want to just call that one. I'll call this function myAdd, and I give it a value, for example, 10, something like that. Now let's run. Hopefully nothing else is running. Now let's run this one and see that what happens. How many things it will recognize and how many it won't. Okay, so you see here what it is saying. You see that it is saying that y is not accessible. And why y is not accessible? Of course, this y is basically I'm trying to access it out of its scope. So for example, if I just give it a comment for a second, and if I run that one now, you see now it is showing total is 10. For example, the value of x is 10, right? So x is 10, and then combined value is 20. For example, I am providing something. I can call this one. Now I am providing this 10 value over there. This 10 is going over there, and 10 is being added to the x, and this y becomes 20, and then this y is printed. Why? Because this y is not directly accessed. So we cannot directly access this one. Why? Because this y, because y is a local variable of my add function. Right? Clear, everyone? Okay. So now we are stopping here for a 5 to 7 minutes break. Let's take a break, and then we'll be back with some more fun. And we will start working on these functions that we have talked about. Now we will see some examples, the live examples, how we can just, how we can just create some interesting facts related to this one, right? So I'll be back in 5 minutes. You also just go and refresh yourself and have a cup of tea or something like that, and see you after 5 to 6 minutes. Right. So now let's start talking about some of the things that we have seen. Now we will just try to just look. Okay. It should be clear now. Someone said that again there was some problem with my sound, and hopefully now it should be solved. Is it clear now? The one who was saying privately. Okay. So now see here what I'm doing in this week 2. This was the script file that we had. So today what I'm doing is that I'm just creating another file, and we'll be working in that one. So for example, I can call it, so for example, Jan 20 script. or Jan20.js, January 20, just for the sake of our date today. I'll just calling them. Now let's start talking about some more functions that we have in JavaScript that we can use. And we are, as I said to you, that we are now practically starting to look into how we will be using these functions and these all sort of things. So let's start an example, and we'll see some working functions over there. So let's take a string s1 equal to the best sound in this world, comma, is your name. Right? Just for nothing, I've just taken one of these statements. Right? S1 is equal to the best sound in the world is your name. Now let's see that let's for example take one scenario and start doing that one, and we'll be just looking at the different functions, and I'll show you all those different functions that we have. So for example, if you see this statement, there is a string being written over here. The best sound in this world, comma, is your name, and there is no period after that. There is no dot after that. So for example, you have been asked to write a function. Let me just close that one. Asked to write a function, and I'm writing function declaration, right? So you have to write a function add period, right, to a string. Whenever a string is passed to you, and you have to do what? This function will return the string with period, like a dot. So now how you can do that? First of all, you say return s plus inverted commas dot. Is that right? So now I'll build upon that one, and we'll talk about lots of functions, and because we'll try to change its shape, and we'll try to do lots of wonderful things. So now this is one of the way of doing that one. So this function add period, when it is provided any string, it will just typically do what? It will return that string with a dot added to that one. Now let's call this function. Let's call this function console.log and add period, and I pass s1 to this one. Now, what will be my output? Of course, everyone would be knowing that. Now I have to run this file jan20.js. So you see that I have the best sound in this world is your name. I'm getting a dot after that one, a period after that. Everyone understands that? Now let's start talking about some of the scenarios. Now what if I have a dot over there already? There is a dot already over there. Now if I run this program, you'll see that I'll get two dots, which looks very ugly, and I have to check that whether if there is already a period, my program should not add period to that one. Is that clear? So we have to check that whether I can do that. That, for example, that if a string is coming that already has some like a period at the end, you should not add that period. Now, how to check that whether the last character or the last the last character coming in the string is a period, is a dot or not? There are multiple methods, there are multiple functions that we can use with the strings, and we can just work on that one. Now let's talk about at least one of them. So for example, rather than returning this one, now one of the function is, for example, if I say if s dot ends with, this is a function that checks that if the string that has come, it ends with this dot. Are you people getting that? So if this function, this ends with this dot, do what? Return s as it is. Else, are you getting that? So if ends with is one of the functions that will no. You're mistaken. Vinny, you are mistaken. I'm right now defining a general function, and S1 is one of the things that I'm working on, and I'm playing this. Don't worry, I'm just going in the right direction. I'll just let you know. Oh yeah. So if that is the case, do that. Otherwise, If that is not that, then you do s plus dot and return that one. Is that right? So now please remember, when he was asking, no problem, Vinny, no problem. When he was asking that whether I have to use S1, no, I'm just making a generic function, right? And this S1 is something that I have defined by myself. Now I'm passing this S1 over there. Now, if I have done that successfully, do you see that what will happen? Now I will have only one dot over there. Does that make sense to everyone? I need some feedback from everyone because this is a very general sort of thing, and I am just trying to build up on this. I will try to build up this on this example. I'm just getting responses from Vinny right now. Clef right, Clef says clear. And how about others? Okay, that's wonderful. So there are lots of people who are saying it's making sense with that one. Okay, so that's wonderful. Now this is when we are doing that one. Now this looks like a very big code, and again, if else-ing, we just try to avoid this if else-ing. I'll just make it comment because let's see that we'll say that okay, this is nothing but this is that comment. Okay, and now I'll come over here. Now instead of writing this one, what we can do that by using this same function, I can say return s dot ends with dot, right? So if this condition is true, again, Gautam, just be very attentive. If this condition is true and there is already a dot, then just return s. Make sense? And if it is not the case, then you have to return what? S plus dot with that one. Got it? That condition is tested that if this s ends with already dot, if it is ending with dot, question mark, so just reply that with simple s. But if it is not the case, you have to reply that one. And now, by the way, I'll tell you another shortcut of that one because this will give you. So s and dot s concatenated together. You know that we learned about the backticks. There was something called a backtick, and backticks were very interesting. I told you. So backtick, what you can do, I will say, okay, curly braces s and just put a dot over there. No need for plus even after that. So backticks are very interesting, and we'll be using backticks a lot in our situations. So this is another way of doing the same thing. Now, what can be the other ways of doing the same thing? I'll just make this comment again. And I've made that comment, everyone. And now what I'll do is that I'll just keep this at the bottom, and I want to keep my definition of function separately because just to keep it clean. Now, what are the other ways? What are the other ways that I can use? I can use one method. I can say var last position. I will be checking the character as the last position. Now, how can I reach to the character of the last position? Anyone? Of this s has been passed to it, and I want to go to the last location or last character of this of this s which has been passed to it. So how I can reach to the last letter of whatever s has been passed. Now, if you remember that if I do something like this, s dot length, that we have got a feature of length with every string, and I do -1. Now tell me, have I reached to the last character position right now? Is that clear? Because I have done what? S dot length. Go to the length and -1. Always length -1 is the last character of every string. Is that clear? So what I've done, I've just calculated the last position. So what is the last position? Yeah, exactly, Vinny, you are right. That's just the position. It's not the value. You are right. It's not the value. Now let's see. What I'll do. So for example, if I say s dot char at character at what? Last pause. Equals. Remember a dot. If char at so Vinny was right. This is just calculating the position of the letter. It was not calculating the letter by itself. So I am calculating the letter, or I'm finding that letter as s.char at the character at last position equals dot. Is that everyone getting that? So if that is the case, do what? Again, you can just again, instead of using this for, again, if loop or if conditioning, let's do that same thing, and by using return. So if I'll say return, right? So what I'll say, s dot char at character at last position equals dot question mark, again the same thing, s colon backticks dollar s and I'll say a dot. Let's see if it works still for us. You see that it says that. Okay, if I just pass a string that does not have a dot in the end, let's check that one as well. You see now I'm getting the dot there. Right. In the same way, now again, this line can be written in the multiple ways. So let me just make it a comment. And I'm just telling you what are the different functions that we have, because you will be needing these functions in today's practice questions, by the way. So I can say return. Now another very important thing, I can say return and s square brackets last pause. Oh, why I'm writing this as a comment. Return s last pause. S of last pause. You know, you can access a character by using an index number. So this is the index number. You know, as Vinny said, that this is the index number that I've calculated for the last character. So I'll say s of last position equals a dot question mark s colon backticks dollar s and dot. Is that right? Let's check again. And again, there is no dot over there. Now a dot appeared, and if I give a dot over there, save that, and now if I check that one, you see that dot is still there, and there's only one dot. There are no two dots. Now another interesting way, I can do another thing over here. Now see, this has also been commented out. Now there is another thing, return s dot last index of dot equals last pause question mark s colon again dollar, oh sorry, it has to be backticks dollar s and this dot. Now, how do you understand what is this? What is this? Last index of. So you know it might have multiple dots, but I'm checking the last index of dot. So okay, just go in my string and try to find. So for example, there is one dot over here as well. One dot over here as well. For example, now my program will always check only the last index of dot. Is that correct? Because there is the function. There is another function index of. So if I just calculate the index of something, it might be reaching the first dot or the second dot, by the way. But what I'm saying right now is that please go and find out the last index of dot. So if the last index of this dot, right, equal to last position, that is also matching the last position. So it means the dot has appeared in the last. Is that right? So if it is the case, do what? If that is the case, do what? That you add that one or you don't add that one. So if I just run that again. Say the okay, so that dot is coming at the end. Is that clear to everyone? So here, yeah. So here you need to just keep in mind this. I've used this backticks as well, and I've used this one. So there we have discussed different functions. You can always use these functions because I will be giving some practice questions for today, and you'll be just creating those practice functions over there as well. So you might be needing these kind of functions, these kind of things, last position, character at, and you can just use this s of last position, or whatever you will be just needing that one in your practice questions that will be followed. By the way, if I stop over here and if I ask you everyone, if you are looking this lecture, or if you are with me right now, or you are looking this lecture in the video, in the first week of studies, we had some practice questions related to JavaScript variables and variable naming. Is there anyone who has done those questions from that one? You know, the week 1 questions. If I show you. Right, so this is for week 2, and let me show you the week 1 folder. Week 1. This one. I think it's just the week 1, yeah. Okay, Tanish, that's wonderful. You tried a few of them. So there were a few questions over here, these practice questions. Right, so as Tanish is saying that Tanish has done few of them. Anyone else who tried that out? Tanish, do you remember that I gave them in a class that please just try to and just go and try these functions, because this will give you a lots of new things, just to know there will be lots of things. Anyhow, so this was the practice questions for that day. And as I said, that today the functions that I've been discussing related to strings and everything, you will see that these will be very beneficial for you in these practice questions. So today I would like everyone to just go and try out these practice questions which are over here, right? And again, there are a few topics that I'll be discussing over here, but then I would like every one of you to just go there and try these questions out, and I'll try to definitely I'll try to check that one as well, right? So I would really talk about that. Okay, so these are the functions, and one of the things that you will be needing for those practice questions is the use of array. We have not talked about arrays in JavaScript till now, so now I'll talk about something about the arrays, because what are arrays and how we can just how we can work with the arrays, how we can just play with the arrays. There are lots of things that we can do with the arrays. So for example, that we have something called arrays in. So for example, I can call my array equal to, and I can give certain values into that one. So I'm expecting, of course, with your language of with your knowledge of C language, you know that what are arrays and how values are stored. And if I ask you that if I console.log, you know that we have just talked about that. If I say my array of 0, I want to just type that. So that what I will be printing out, it would be 1, and at 1 it will be 2, at 2 it will be 3, and 3 it will be 4. You know about that, everyone? Because I am about to say something different, which and we'll be just talking about that array in a different way in JavaScript. So all of you are familiar with arrays in general. It's only Vinny who has said yes. I need response from everyone that you are familiar with arrays. Okay, you have done those arrays. Now today I'll tell you some interesting features of arrays which are usually common, or which are usually concerned with JavaScript only. All right, so let's start a program, because that will give us a good practice of array. So for example, make array. I'm creating a function make array, right? And again, function declaration, by the way, nothing else. And it has an array var my arr equal to nothing, an empty array, right? So arrays can be empty, and we can. So there are two functions that are used with arrays in JavaScript. I don't know you have used that before or not. So for example, you are familiar with this for loop. You have done this for loop a number of times. If I say I less than 10, I plus plus. This for loop, good friend of yours, like an old friend, right? So now there are certain functions which are related with arrays that we can use in JavaScript, and they will make our arrays more and more efficient. And one of the functions related to that is push. Now, if I do something like this, I say my arr dot push, right? And I say I plus 1. So effectively what I'm saying, my loop will run from 0 till 9, for example. So 10 times. So it will run 10 times from 0 to 9. So 10 times you execute and push one value. So what is this push? push is used to insert something into an array. Does that make sense to everyone? Push is used to insert something in an array. Whenever we use this push function, it will insert one value into the array. Right? So if I just do that, and after that pushing that one inside this function, I say console.log, and I say my ARR, just print that my ARR, right? And if I call this function, let's see what happens. You see that I have got 10 values because I did I plus 1, like 0 plus 1. So it is just taking first value as 1, then the second one is 2, then third one is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All those values have been stored over here. Is that right? So push is used to insert something into an array. Right? Is that clear to everyone? That's wonderful. Now, there is another function which is called pop. So if I come over here and I do something like this, my ARR dot pop. Let's see what happens. So remember these values, 1 to 10, it is storing. Now if I just run that again. So what does pop does? Can anyone tell me? Pop is doing what? Pop is deleting one value from an array, and it is deleting, like, the last value that came in. So the first value that will go into array, push first of for the first time, push will push on 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I call pop once, it will just delete first last value that came in. So you see 10 has come down of it. Understand everyone? If I do one more thing, if I say my array dot pop again. Now, what will be the output now? Output will be till 8. And why? Because now it has started to pop values from the bank. Can you use to choose which element we want to? Which element? Okay, that's a wonderful thing. The problem is the pop function, Winnie, will always delete the last inserted value. I can get your question. You want to know that how I want to, if I want to delete a particular value, how I could do that. That I'll tell you, just don't worry about that. But right now, just see, yes, you got right, that pop will always delete one from the back, and push will always insert one from the top, right? So it will be so these two functions act according to that one. But yes, we have the way to do different things that will be just me. Right? So this is related to the function, and this is related to the array. So we can use this array push and pop functions that will do the rest of the things for us. So I'm just keeping that over here, and now I'll be just talking about some other interesting things. So another function I want to say, if I want to create my string, a function my string. So I'll talk about arrays and strings both. So I say var words equal to square brackets. So whenever you have to just collect more than multiple strings, give it a square brackets. For example, I say 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So these are the strings that we have. And var nums equal to, of course, that was an array of string. Now the array of number 1, 2, 3, 4. I just defined those values by myself. Now I'll tell you, you remember I talked about that there are certain special types of loop, for, off, and for each. I'll talk about the for each loop because that you will understand what is that for each. And it's a very important one, and I would like you to just concentrate on that one because that will give you a very interesting. Let's talk about first of all the for loop and try to print all the words from my strings, right? But using the for loop. Now how I can do that? So first of all, as I said, I'm just using a simple for loop, which you are familiar with. You have done that for loop before. So if I say var I equal to 0, now I don't know what will be the length of that one. So what I'll do, I'll say words dot length. Right? I want to run till words dot length and I plus plus. Understand everyone? And I use this for off and other loops to do the same thing. Right? And I want to take out one word at a time from these words. So I'll say words of I, and print this word. Now, are you getting what I'm saying? From words.length, go to the words.length and take out one word at a time. So you see, at 0 we have 1, at 1 we have 2, at 2 we have 3, whatever. So it will just take out one character at a time, and it will store that in Word, and that word will be printed out over here. Now let's run this one. Okay, I've not called this function. See, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what it is saying, it's taking out a word from that one and then printing that one. And why I have done that? Because I will be using the same kind of things with the for loop, and I'll tell you that how easy it becomes. So here you need to just take care what is the length of that one, or you have to just worry about that. What will be the length? How many characters will be there? Here I know that there are 4 strings stored. I could have written down 4 over here. But what about in a situation where you don't know that how many values are there in arrays? So now this was an example by using the for loop, simple for loop. And as I said, you are familiar with this one. Everyone is familiar. And now please keep this example in mind, because we'll be using now for off loop. Now there is another loop which is called for off loop, for off, which you have not used. Now the same thing will be done in for off loop. How? Let's see here. For var word of words. Console.log word. Do you think that it has become very easy now? I don't need to worry about the length. I don't need to worry about anything else. What I've done is I've said for var word of words. So this is a collection. Go to this collection. From this collection, take one value at a time and store that into Word. Is that making sense to everyone? If I want to print these values from the nums, how I would do that? So how I do that? I say for var num of nums. So what I've said, I've called it nums, right? Number of nums, right? Do what? Console.log num. Print one num at a time. I'm looking at what's going on. So now the output is, okay, let me show you. So the output is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, because this was giving me the words. So are you understanding this for off? That the collection comes over here, a variable comes over here in which one value from the collection will jump into it, and that you can work on that value. Is that easy for everyone? Because this is the most easiest one of the lot. For off, this is the most easiest one of the lot. Right? So this will be done by using this one. Now let's make both of these comments, and now I'll tell you for each. Because if you understand this for off, then your for each will be good with that. Now I have to do the same thing by using for each. So now for each. This is the loop that we have, right? So now how to do that with for each? So you see here. I'll directly go, I'll say words dot for each. Right? Words dot for each. Now, first of all, just go at the end and put a terminator, because it has a bit typical like syntax. And you will get familiar with that. But right now, this for each accepts a function. And in function parameter, we say that the single value that will come out of that one. So we say something like this, and I'll say console.log word. Is everyone getting that? It has a different syntax. It has a bit of typical syntax, a different, complex syntax. Because this for each, first of all, I will give the collection words dot for each. For each word, take out one value at a time and pass it as a function parameter. and do something on that one. Is that clear to everyone? Because this is something that we'll be using quite often. For each, we'll use lots of time. We'll use this for each over here. We'll use for of a lot of time because this is also very easy and very, syntactically it's easy to use. Is that clear to everyone? Not so clear. Could you give another example? Yeah, why not? So let's talk about this one. So you are talking about Vinny about for each. You are talking about. Okay, I'll scroll up. I'll show you. You want to see the okay, Vinny, I'll come to that. So Gautam, you want to see this for off loop? No, where the word where is it? Okay, this one you're talking about words. So this is an array of strings, array of multiple strings, and this is an array of numbers. Gautam, you got it? Okay, I'll give another example because some people are not understanding that. So I'll give another example. No worries. Okay, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So now let's talk about this. Okay, I'll just keep this like this, and I'll give you another example over here. Okay. Right. Function, my function. See here. Now, everyone, including Vinny, I have some random names, for example, names equal to. So let's take maybe some names. Okay, I'll talk about that, right? And then the last names, for example, I can see in my list is Gotham, for example. Let's take Gotham. And let's take one more name, which is Vinny, by the way. Right? So just keep these three names. So now think about this. Vinny, this is a collection whose collection, and what's the name of this collection? The collection name is names. Everyone understand that? Now, to run a for each loop and take out every value from this collection and work on that, or maybe read that, I have a loop that is called for each loop. The syntax of which is that first of all the collection name comes, then comes this for each statement, and for our easiness, I always put a terminator after that because this becomes complex. Now I come back into this one, and I say that there is a function over here, and this function will receive one value at a time, one name at a time. By the way, I'm just you can name it anything. So this function will do what? This function will do nothing, but it will just print out that name that has been received in the value. Vinny, are you getting that? For each function, and this is the single value that will come out of the collection. That will come out of the collection. So take out of the collection and do that. Okay, someone is asking, can I do something like that? No. Okay, can I replace function word with word? No. If you want, yes. So someone has asked a question privately. Can I convert this function word into only word parenthesis? I think you are trying to say what you are trying to say is that you are trying to use an arrow function over here. And by the way, just for your answer and for everyone, I can write this like this as well, because you remember the arrow function. It can come as, but remember that there will be a callback function always in for each parameter. Yeah, are you getting that? So if you do that, you will have to convert that into an array, into an arrow, not array. You'll have to convert that into an arrow. Got it? So right. So again, you can write this as well, like this way as well. It's up to you. You can always use this method or that method. Now, let me tell you another very interesting thing. If I do something like this, value dot to uppercase, and it's a function. If I do that, you see what will happen. You see what will happen. Can anyone tell me what will be my output? Okay, no output. Why? Because I have not called this function. my function. If I call this function, what will be output? You see, all names will be caps. Why? Because I have converted. So I have taken out one value at a time, and I said value dot to uppercase. Whatever name comes, convert to uppercase. Whatever name comes, convert to uppercase. So it is converting all those names into uppercase that it has received from my collection names. So what is the difference? And by the way, if I ask a question from everyone, what is the difference between this and for of? For of is quite easy. For of does not look for a definition. So for of says var value of names. Remember everyone? And just go over there and it will say console.log and value dot to uppercase. That I can do over here as well. So which one is the most simplest one? Of course, you know, the for of is the most simplest one. But it's up to you if you feel like that I like for each. We'll be using for each much more. We usually use for each in amendments, right? So there will be so too much for each loops being used. Is that clear to everyone? Because I'm not stopping here. I'm not stopping only here. For everyone who is looking at the video, for everyone who is right now over here, these practice questions, I would like you or every one of you to just try to attempt these practice questions of week 2 as well. And if you are able to do so, you can always select that, because this is not a formal assignment. And yes, by the way, your formal assignment number 1 is on its way. You might be getting it tomorrow, like Friday. But whenever you will get that, remember that you'll get 15 days to complete that one, right? But this is not a formal assignment. This is just your practice for the functions. And by the way, if you practice this for the functions, then you will be able to do your assignment. Can you explain a little bit how the function work as a parameter? Oh, yeah. So, Jayang, right now, if you just bear with me, it's a very nice question, because you are asking that how function works as a parameter. It's a very long story, and I'll let you know what is that long story. But right now you understand, for the purpose of this one, you just understand that whenever for each is there, let me just show you that. Whenever for each is there, just consider that for each accepts as a function as a parameter or something like that. You know, Young, I can understand where you want to go from here. But for the time being, just bear with me and you just understand, okay, this is some way of doing that. But I'll tell you what it is. They are called callback functions, and there's a long story related to that one. Jayang, you got that point? I just intentionally don't want to discuss that long story, but I'll discuss that long story later on. So the question is, for those who are looking at the recording, the question was that, can you explain the function working as a parameter? So, but remember, this for each accepts this function as a parameter, and this function is a complete function unit, which has body, which has parameters and everything, and it runs on every value of every component of this collection. Jayang, you got my point? So for the time being, just keep this point with you, and I will explain rest, what is the function and how do we do that. Okay, so I'm stopping here, and I'm expecting that you will be practicing these questions. If you have any questions, you can always talk to me. We can always have a discussion on that one. So if you have any questions, you can always come back. And I would expect you to just read all these notes of week 2 thoroughly. If you have any questions, you can always talk to me, and we can just discuss that one. Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. And now we will have see you next week, and we will have our next lecture on Monday or whatever the next week. Right. So, but assignment, keep an eye on the assignment, and see you on Monday. Everyone, just put up a chat message of a bye or something, and then you can leave the meeting. Thank you. You too, Young.